Tonight, Professor Kathy Greaves and liberal arts advisor Jeff Hale speak about how sex is tied to the media and the effects of online pornography for Sexual Responsibility Week.
Auditions have begun for OSU's community talent show, OSU Has Talent, and we'll show you some of the acts you might see in the show.
And finally, Molly shows us another local jam session with Molly's Music Minute. We'll have all that and more on tonight's episode of the Beaver News.
Good evening and welcome to the Tuesday night edition of the Beaver News. I'm Molly Jones.
And I'm Emily Schucht. We're glad you could join us this evening.
This week at OSU is Sexual Responsibility Week, brought to you by the Student Health Services Health Promotion Department and the Sexual Health Advisory Group. In an effort to inform and empower our student body about sexual health, these groups have a lot of interesting activities planned. Tomorrow night at 6 is Sexy Bingo, where you can earn prizes for yelling sexual health words in the MU. Thursday in the MU Quad Brick Mall is the annual Condom Carnival.
As a continuation of these week's events, a presentation was given last night by liberal arts advisor Jeff Hale and professor of sexual health Kathy Greaves on the topic of sex in a digital environment. Topics from last night's presentation included everything from pornography to sexuality and advertising. Here's a clip from last night's talk.
I was curious about advertising. We know that advertising is misogynistic. We know that it focuses on images of women. It ties those images to sexuality. And women account for over 66% of the advertising workforce. They are 51% of the managers and executives in advertising. Advertising that seems to be, in some ways, detritus to women continue to be made. Why? 10%, just 10% of the creative directors in advertising in the United States are women. Women continue to hire men to be the creative force in advertising. So most of the ads you see are created by men, even though women make 80% of the purchasing decisions.
The younger you view pornographic material, the more likely it is to be the example in your mind of that's how sex is in a relationship context. And most porn does not in any way, shape, or form represent what real sex looks like or how it plays out.
And Kathy Greaves, also known as Dr. Sex, will also be answering student questions about sex this Thursday. You can now drop off any questions about sex, relationships, or anything else you'd like Dr. Sex to answer at all cultural and resource centers here on campus. She'll be answering students' questions this Thursday from 5 to 7 p.m. at the Native American Longhouse at an event called Cupcakes and Condoms.
Love is in the air this week, and a small group from the OSU Women's Choir is spreading the Valentine spirit. This melodious group, called Voce, is delivering phallograms to students on campus tomorrow and Thursday. For $15, you can send your special someone a rose, some chocolates, and a serenade by Voce. Song choices are Just the Way You Are by Bruno Mars, Lucky by Jason Mraz, Call Me Maybe by Carly Rae Jepsen, and the theme song from Friends. Voce will deliver your phallogram anywhere on campus with your professor's approval.
This Friday, the Rainbow Continuum is hosting Rain Bowl, a free bowling night for LGBT and ally students. The social happens at 6 to 9 p.m. in the MU basement and will include resource tabling, competitions, and prizes. Students who attend will get a chance to learn about LGBT, history, political, and culture through trivia games. The event aims to help students learn about and connect with resources available to them on campus. Rain Bowl is co-sponsored by LGBT student groups of Willamette Valley, so will also be an opportunity for students to socialize and network with members of other universities.
Tonight in the Alumni Center, the BIS Council, along with the Information Management Club and the Career Services Center, hosted a Meet the Firms night. This meet and greet will bring together technology professionals from all backgrounds to share information about the variety of opportunities available for students with a business information systems, computer science, or computer information systems degree. Some of the companies that will be in attendance will include IBM, Samaritan Health Services, and Garmin.
Is there a sweeter way to celebrate history than with chocolate? This Valentine's Day, as part of Black History Month, the Lonnie B. Harris Black Cultural Center and Seoul Multicultural LGBT Support Network are hosting a chocolate truffle making workshop. Those who attend will be able to roll and eat their own truffles and learn how chocolate is a cross-cultural treat. The truffle making festivities will take place from 5 to 7 p.m. this Thursday in the kitchen of Snell Hall.
Last night marked the beginning of talent auditions for OSU Has Talent, a community talent show that gives an opportunity for OSU students to show their stuff and win up to $300. The auditions kicked off with a stunning dance routine and several student singers hoping to show their stuff. Auditions will continue all this week in the KBVR studios from 8 to 10 p.m. every night. Before the final show, 8 finalists from the auditions will be chosen to compete in the OSU Has Talent finale. The finale will take place on March 1st at 7 p.m. with the location still to be determined. Well, Molly, do you know of any talented singers?
I certainly do. In fact, let's talk about them right now for this segment of Molly's Music Minute. On Friday, a Portland-based electro-pop duo called Askew and Gray dropped in to play a set for us on Locals Live. In the 6 years that Nick Witchman and Trey Tatum have been playing together, they've covered a lot of material. Their lyrics explore everything from science fiction and political turmoil to love, life, and death. Time travel is the concept behind Twin Paradox, their newest album set to drop on April 5th. If you'd like to give Askew and Gray a listen and find out more about their upcoming shows, you can visit their Facebook page or go to askewandgray.com.
And if you think you're nerdy, then you can listen to our album and look up all the things that are really hidden. We have a lot of hidden gems in there of nerdiness.
To hear more local bands every week, check out our live concert show, Locals Live, on KBVR every Friday at 6 p.m. This week, we'll have a rock and roll band called Death Mountain Rotor Cloud in the studio. This has been Molly's Music Minute.
The mystery of how salmon navigate across thousands of miles of open ocean to locate their own river of origin has intrigued biologists for decades. A new study may offer some answers to the salmon's homing strategy. Scientists examined 56 years of fisheries data documenting the return of salmon to the Fraser River in British Columbia, and discovered that the route the salmon chose around Vancouver Island showed a correlation with changes in the intensity of the geomagnetic field. This suggests that salmon may use magnetic fields as a navigational aid, and researchers plan to do further experiments to test the idea.
February is Residence Hall Eco Challenge Month, and Oregon State students are making efforts to help the environment. Students living in residence halls can get involved by participating in Recycle Mania, a contest in which campus recycling weighs the amount of material recycled and composted by each residence hall. The residence hall competition runs from February 11th to March 1st. Of course, a campus cause wouldn't be complete without a little friendly competition with the Ducks. The campus-wide version of Recycle Mania pits U of O versus OSU in a competition that runs from January 20th to March 30th. Currently, through 2 weeks of the competition, the Beavs are beating the Ducks with 3.1 pounds per person recycled against the 2.7 pounds recycled by U of O.
If you are feeling particularly crafty this evening, then check out the crafting that is going on in the Valley Library until 8 p.m. tonight. They will be creating recycled decorations for Mardi Gras, Valentine's Day, and any other event you feel like celebrating this month. You can also make recycled cards and stickers, as well as learn about the CCE, Recycle Mania, and future volunteer opportunities.
This past month, we've been talking a lot about student tuition and the stress it has brought upon students of all ages. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the recent ASOSU grassroots movement, Wear the Square, and how it aims to help decrease some of the financial stress. Here's a reminder of the movement to refresh your memory.
One of the things we're trying to do is increase awareness with students as far as the increasing cost of tuition. One of the ideas this next year is that student tuition could actually go up $460, and that's been a 10-year. We're actually trying to get students to sign a petition. And what we can do is go up to the state legislature and explain that students do care about what's happening with higher education, and that we actually need funding for this program to work. So it's time for students to stand up, to voice their opinions, and go, legislature, you need to step up on your side and actually fund higher education. This board right here, so what does a $460 increase in tuition mean to you? It's an idea to bring to students of going, $460, what can you do with that? So there's lots of ideas as far as, what students could do. There's someone here as far as, well, that means more time that I'd spend in my parents' basement living at home. More money for athletics or more money to do the things that they would enjoy doing.
I wrote more pressure on my parents in a time they don't need it, because most of my college years here I've been supported a lot through my parents, and as cliche as it sounds, in this tough economic times, they don't need to be paying even $500 more a year to support me going here. I just think it's ridiculous that it continues to rise, not just here, but all of the Oregon university systems. So I feel like they should prioritize our education a little bit more and stop having us pay so out of pocket for it.
Joining us tonight to speak about the Wear the Square movement is ASOSU Vice President Dan Cushing. Dan, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me, Emily.
Yeah, you're more than welcome. Now, tell us about what is the mission of Wear the Square?
The mission of the Wear the Square movement is very simple. Students will not tolerate another tuition increase for the 2013-2014 school year.
All right, and now how successful has the movement been so far?
The movement has been very successful. We've had one big event, which was a rally in the MU Quad, as we just saw. There were probably 40 to 50 students at the rally, and afterward we had over 400 signatures on our petition against any tuition increases, so it's great. Tuition has actually doubled since 2000 for resident undergraduate students and for others as well. Tuition last year went up about $347 for resident undergrads, and next year it could go up another $533. Every year we're seeing tuition increases up to the order of $400, $500, even up to $800 that far outpace the rate of inflation. This is a serious problem, and students are saying enough is enough.
And now, what is the meaning behind the Wear the Square itself, the symbol of the red square?
Well, in Quebec, Canada, in 2011, there was a proposal by that government there to increase tuition at public universities by about $100 per year for 5 years in order to balance the budget. $100 is way less than the tuition increases we've been seeing. But students there realize that education is a right, and it's the key to a better society. So more than 300,000 of them went on strike. They took to the streets and protested this proposal, and to show their solidarity, they wore a red square on their backpacks and on their coats to show that students are squarely in the red. Red is the color that's used in ledger books to indicate debt, and that's more than accurate here in Oregon. The average student graduates from an Oregon Public University with more than $25,000 in debt. Right now in this country, we're seeing student loan debt exceed credit card debt and auto loan debt combined at more than $1 trillion. This is a national problem, and it's especially bad here in Oregon, and students are finally saying enough is enough.
Now, OSU administrators point to the lack of per-student funding from the state legislature itself. Do you have a response to that?
Well, this is absolutely true. The state legislature has continuously disinvested from higher education. In fact, the Oregon university system, which is the 7 public universities in Oregon, has now received 60% less of the state budget than they did back in the late 80s. But on top of that, there's an institutional problem as well here at Oregon State. Administrative costs, that's not faculty or staff, but it's administrators, are spending 89% more than they did just 6 years ago. That means that in the past 6 years, the amount of money spent on things like advertising, business functions, and essentially those things that are needed to privatize Oregon State University have almost doubled. And that's absolutely true. What we're seeing is our education being turned from a public good into a commodity, and it's being sold at market value. What this is doing is it's pricing students out of an education. Students are having to take on more debt. They're having to not buy things like textbooks that are needed to learn, and people are even having a hard time affording things like food and rent. So this is a serious problem, and we need our administrators to meet the state halfway, and for both those groups, both those parties to act to prevent a tuition increase next year.
Mm-hmm. And Dan, what is the future of the Wear the Square movement? Well,
right now, ASOSU leaders like myself and the president, Amelia Harris, are engaged in negotiations with the university and its various committees, as well as lobby efforts with the state legislature. We need students to mobilize and force, and we'll be putting strategic pressure on those groups to make sure that that those folks know that this is not just a student government thing. This is something that affects all students that we represent here at Oregon State. We'll be having more events to put that pressure on, but until then, we'll keep you posted.
All right, Dan, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having us on the show.
Well, that's all we have for you tonight. I'm Emily Schucht. For more information of your Beaver news, find us on Facebook, watch us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter. Have a good night.